Okay, well, welcome to our part of our Earth Day celebration for the 50-year anniversary of Earth Day. Today we have a great program on sustainable marine fisheries, talking about catch and release, and we have two great dynamic speakers to present to you today. First, we have Angela Collins, who is a Sea Grant agent in Manatee County and covers, I think Angela covers another county too, don't you, Angela?
Technically, Hillsborough and Sarasota for fisheries stuff, but I'm based in Manatee County.
All right, well, great. So Angela is on the line with us today, and she's going to give the main part of our presentation. And then we have another great Sea Grant agent down in Sarasota County, Armando. Armando, are you on and able to talk to us?
Yes, I'm here as well.
There
Thank you.
Is. Okay, so Armando is got lots of great information for us as well. And so we're going to get started. Again, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you in future presentations. And I'm going to turn it over to Angela to get us started.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Michelle. And thank you everybody for listening today. I'm going to be talking about sustainable marine fisheries, and that is a really big topic. But today we're going to sort of focus on catch and release practices and sort of some of the logic behind it and some of the issues that have surrounded that topic in the past. Michelle did a nice job introducing us, but Armando and I work together very closely as partners. Manatee County and Sarasota County are adjacent here in the Tampa Bay, Sarasota Bay area. So between the two of us, we can hopefully answer any regional stakeholder questions or needs about these fisheries topics. So before I get too far into the presentation, I'd like to just sort of give people a background on Sea Grant. So a lot of folks know what Sea Grant is, but there are many folks who do not. So I just kind of want to give a little quick snippet and background. Sea Grant is actually a program that is funded through at the federal level. We receive funding from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and there are Sea Grant programs in all of the coastal states within the U.S. So every state that borders an ocean has a Sea Grant program nested within it, and also that also includes the Great Lakes and Puerto Rico. So there are Sea Grant programs throughout the country, and they're typically associated with a university. And then in Florida, we are associated with the University of Florida. So we're nested within UF. And so you can find your local Sea Grant agent at your county offices, your UF IFAS extension offices within your county. So Sea Grant has a very broad spatial coverage and also topical coverage, and they focus on research, education, and extension that enhances coastal resources and also economic opportunities for the citizens in the state of Florida. So everything from sea level rise to healthy fisheries to sustainable aquaculture and environmental literacy, all of these things you can find resources for within your Sea Grant program. So today I'm going to be talking about fisheries. I again am based in Manatee County. So here's my contact information if anyone has any follow-up questions. And also Armando is in Sarasota County, and his contact information is here. So both of us have a broad marine biology background. And so any sorts of ocean topics you might have a question about, please feel free to utilize us as a resource anytime. So let's get right into this. Saltwater fisheries in Florida are a really big deal. Florida is the fishing capital of the world. I'm not just saying that because I love Florida and fishing. It really has been named, given that title in multiple places. So we are the fishing capital of the world, and most of that is based in our abundant saltwater resources that we have in our marine fisheries. The economic impacts that are associated with marine fisheries in the state exceed $7.6 billion, and that's billion with a B, every single year. So a very big economic component to the industry in the state of Florida. The economic impacts are big. So healthy fisheries are an important thing, not just for conservation reasons, but also for the economic implications behind healthy fisheries. In 2016, we sold almost 2 million saltwater recreational fishing licenses, which just sort of goes to show the demand for recreational fishing opportunities in Florida. This is obviously a very highly targeted recreational activity in the state. Recreational marine fisheries support over 100,000 jobs. So a lot of folks depend on recreational marine fisheries as part of the way that they make money. And then our commercial fisheries are not insignificant either. Over 90 million pounds of commercial seafood is landed in the state of Florida every year, and we supply 84% of the U.S. supply of grouper, mullet, stone crab, pink shrimp, and spiny lobster come from the state of Florida. So I just kind of always include this information when I talk about the importance of healthy fisheries, because there are a lot of things that are associated with our healthy fisheries here in the state. So catch and release is something that is done either because the angler has a personal preference that they don't want to catch the fish. They might just be fishing for the pure sport of it and they want to let everything go that they catch. You might also release a fish because it is too small. A lot of species are managed by size and bag and seasonal restrictions. So there are a lot of reasons that an angler might put a fish back into the water. It might be completely protected from harvest. So over here in this picture on the far right, this is a Goliath grouper. This is one of the largest groupers in the sea. These guys can reach over 7 feet in total length, and the Goliath grouper is completely protected from harvest. So you can never keep a Goliath grouper if you catch one. But there are 15 other species of managed grouper in the state of Florida, like this one here in the middle. This is a gag grouper, and gag grouper are managed by size. So you can't keep them if they're under a certain total length, and you also can't keep them if you catch them during certain times of the year. So they have closed seasons and also size restrictions. And then things like the inshore fisheries, this right here is a red drum on the far left. This is a redfish, and redfish are managed by a slot and also by seasons, and sometimes they're completely closed depending on the environmental conditions in the area, just like snook. So there are a lot of factors that might influence an angler's ability to keep a fish that they catch. So any of those fish that are let go after an angling event is kind of lumped into this catch and release category. So what's the issue and why do we talk about it? Well, just because you let a fish go doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to survive after you let it go. So angler behavior has a big impact on how well that released fish does after the catch and release event. So if you think about struggling on a hook line, you know, a lot of those longer fight times can lead to the fish being pretty tired after that struggle, which increases their vulnerability to predation. If you keep a fish out of the water for too long, that can lead to suffocation. Remember, these guys have gills and they need to be in the water to absorb oxygen, which is necessary for life. So keeping them out of the water for too long can obviously lead to suffocation. Improper handling of the fish when it's out of the water can injure their internal organs. So like, you know, dropping a fish on a deck or holding a really heavy fish out of the water just supported only by its jaw, you know, damage from hooks, all of those things, improper handling can definitely injure the fish and impact their ability to have long-term survival after catch and release. Extensive handling of the body can remove that. I don't know if, how many of you have held fish before and have noticed that sometimes you get some slime on your hands after taking a fish off the hook. That's their protective coating. It's kind of a barrier that keeps parasites and helps reduce their risk of infection from different bacteria and things that might be in the water. So, you know, removing that protective slime during handling can decrease their resistance to infections. And then obviously hook-related injuries can sometimes be lethal. If the fish is hooked in the gills, that can be pretty bad. If it swallows the hook and the hook is, you know, yanked out, that can also, gut hooking can be a damaging situation. So these are all sort of things to consider when you're handling a fish, especially if you're planning on letting it go and you're not putting it in the cooler for consumption. So one of the first things that all anglers need to do before they head out on the water is obviously know the rules. And fishing regulations are not an easy thing to remember. They are changing all of the time. The U.S. has and Florida have some of the most sustainably managed fisheries on the planet, but those sustainably managed fisheries require rules and regulations, and because rules and regulations are based on data, and data is consistently changing and getting updated, the rules also change. So knowing the rules is important, and so I've provided a few links here, or a few informational places to find the rules. FWC.com always has your recreational saltwater fishing regulations right there online. The Gulf Council also has a really lovely website dedicated to keeping anglers informed of best practices and rules and regulations in the Gulf of Mexico. And then this is an app for your phone that I recommend to anybody who's on the water consistently. It's called Fish Rules. It's a Fish Rules app. That's the website right here. You can download that on your phone, and it updates. This application will update itself whenever it's connected to the internet, and it'll update with the new rules as they come into play. So if you are an avid fisherman, you probably already have one of these apps on your phone. But if you're a new fisherman or you're new to the area, just make sure that you're aware that our rules change a lot. So having sort of a up-to-date resource for finding the rules help you know if you have to let that fish go that you keep, or before you put it in the cooler. Make sure you know what's in season before you head out on the water. And yeah, here's just kind of that Fish Rules app, what it looks like on the web. So also being prepared. So have your regulations with you, know your rules, but also, have the right tools in your toolbox before you head out. And so, some dehooking tool doesn't have to be fancy. It can just be as simple as a pair of pliers, but just, make sure you have something to help you get that hook easily out of the mouth to reduce the handling time. If you're fishing for reef species, circle hooks are required. If you're fishing for other species, you might not necessarily be required to utilize a circle hook, but circle hooks, we'll talk about those a little bit more in a minute. Those actually reduce the chance of the fish getting gut hooked. They have the way that the circle hook is created is so that it's designed to sort of hook right into the corner of the fish's mouth and minimize injury from hooking. Having a lip grip is a really helpful tool, especially if you're catching larger species. You can see like the end of one here in this angler photo. This is kind of just something that helps the angler control the jaw while you're removing the hook, and also help you get that fish back into the water quickly and safely. And then a soft rubberized or some other sort of landing net can also be helpful if you're handling the fish boat side or bringing it in. It reduces the amount of time that your hands need to be on the animal. So just kind of keeping your toolbox clean and well stocked and making sure that you have some of these just necessary tools with you is good practice in general. And then here we go into a little bit more detail on some best practices on catch and release. So if you're just, going out to catch fish to put in the box, or even if even if you're planning on keeping the fish, a lot of these fish might be undersized, or you might catch non-target species. So you always want to think about things you can do to increase the survival of the fish you have to throw back in the water. Shallower waters are typically gonna be a place where fish experience less barotrauma, and I'm going to talk about barotrauma in a minute, but quickly, it's a injury that happens when a fish is brought up from depth. It's related to pressure change. So when you're fishing in deeper water, there's a higher chance of encountering fish that are going to suffer barotrauma. So when you fish in shallower waters, you're probably going to have higher survival rates. Also limiting fight time. So lighter tackle is sometimes maybe more challenging for the angler, but it's not necessarily better for the fish. So you want to limit the fight time. Those long fight times will, physiologically impact the ability of that fish to recover. So if you can have short fight times, that's going to be better. And then always using corrosive, non-stainless hooks. Whatever kind of hooks you're using, try to not use stainless and use something that will corrode, because if it does need to remain in the fish, for example, if the fish does swallow the hook and you're not able to get it out easily without injuring the fish, if it's a corrosive metal, it will eventually disintegrate and be, eliminated from the fish's body. So those corrosive non-stainless steel hooks are the way to go for fish. And also if they break off and they're trailing the leader, eventually if they're non-stainless, they will rust out and fall off the fish's mouth. So you don't have to worry as much about that. And then when you're holding and handling the fish, releasing them, you want to have wet hands. That just helps keep that slime coat on the fish. Use some sort of a dehooking device when you're removing the hook from the fish, and then, handle the fish as quickly as you can. Try to minimize the number of photos that you take. I'm not saying don't take a photo, because fish photos are amazing. Take them for sure, but try to minimize how long that fish is out of the water. And when you do have the fish out of the water, just kind of give that body nice, gentle support, and remember to get it back in the water as quickly as you can. And when you're fishing in deeper water, and when I say deeper, think about an atmosphere. An atmosphere is about 30 feet of seawater. So once you get out deeper than 30 feet, you're starting to think about, you might encounter a fish that has barotrauma. I mean, you really see significant barotrauma when you get out past 100, 120 feet, but you can see it even in the shallower water sometimes. So if you're fishing deeper than 30 feet, start thinking about looking at that fish and assessing whether or not it might be suffering from that pressure-related barotrauma, which I'm going to go into detail more about in just a sec. These images down here just sort of orient you to, these are the difference. This is a typical classic J hook, and this is a circle hook. And you see the way that circle hook is designed is basically to, increase the chance that that fish is going to be hooked right in the lip, which is where you want to hook it. And it's also one of the easiest places to get that hook back out. It minimizes damage to the fish. And all these tools down here are just examples of things that can be used for removing a hook, dehooking devices. These longer ones are nice if the fish has it in the throat or down the throat a little bit. You can use those, or if you have a large animal, you can use these larger dehooking devices to, get in there a little bit easier and, not risk fingers in the fish's mouth. And then also obviously pliers are an essential fisherman tool. So I mentioned barotrauma a few times. It's worth talking about just to sort of orient you to this word and this problem in fishes. So barotrauma is a pressure-related injury that happens, and it's because you're bringing the fish basically from a pressurized system down in that deep water. You're bringing it up to the surface, and when that happens, any gas-filled space in the fish's body, that gas, as you bring it up from depth, is going to expand. So this X-ray image of a fish right here, you can see this black space, this hollow area right here, and that's actually the fish's swim bladder or gas bladder. Swim bladders in fishes are used in maintaining buoyancy within the water column. It helps them maintain this neutral buoyancy position off the bottom, and it is, obviously very important in a lot of our bony fishes for maintaining their neutral buoyancy. But if you bring them up real quick from the bottom, the swim bladder expands, and that can cause barotrauma. So there is a really nice video series on YouTube that Florida Sea Grant put together. I am not going to play it. Well, I'm going to hit the play button here, and I'm going to turn the sound off. But this infographic can give you some image. Let me show you here. So this is kind of going to walk you through what it looks like when you catch a fish. This is venting behavior. And then I just wanted to show you this here. One sec. There. Okay. So see the swim bladder is expanding. When that expands, it can push that stomach inside out and out of the mouth. So when that happens, it's really nice to be able to vent the fish or descend the fish. So these are just some external signs of barotrauma, what it might look like. So if you catch a fish and you're like, I don't know if it has barotrauma or not, what does that look like? What is that all about? This is, sometimes it's very obvious. So this is a red grouper here, and see how this right here, a lot of people when they catch a fish from deep water and this is coming out of their mouth, they think that that's the swim bladder. but it's actually the stomach turned inside out, because that swim bladder has expanded so much within the body cavity that it's pushed the stomach back out through the mouth. So this image here is kind of showing you the stomach coming out of the fish's mouth. They can also have this kind of, it can blow out the intestines out the other end. You can have bubbly scales where the gas is just coming out, whatever opening it can come out of. Sometimes they'll have these bulging eyes. And a lot of times you'll put the fish back in the water, and because of the inflated gases that are within its body, it's not able to descend on its own, and it'll be floating on the surface. So ways that you can help fish survive if they do experience barotrauma are by venting or by descending. And so these are the most common mitigation strategies that are currently in use for folks that fish for reef fishes and fishes that occur in deep water. Venting basically involves using any hollow tube that can poke a hole in the fish's body, that lets that gas escape. So this is a needle, in this case, a hypodermic needle with a relatively large gauge. And this is showing kind of where you vent on the fish's body. Lay that pectoral fin flat against the side of the body, and then you hold the needle or your other venting tool device right behind that pec fin, and it punctures right where that swim bladder would be. And you can actually hear the gas escape. If you hit it in the right spot, you'll hear it, you'll hear that gas escape. And then that fish is good to go. And they actually do recover really nicely from venting. If venting is done properly and in the right location, the fish will recover and resume normal behavior a lot of times within the day or within 24 hours. We've had red grouper that we vented and caught within the hour again. So if you vent them quickly, get them back in the water, they do heal and they do recover just fine to be caught again. The other mitigation strategy that's gaining more and more traction, especially on the East Coast, it's been out in practice in Australia and on the West Coast of the US for a while, but the East Coast is a little behind in adopting these strategies, but it's called weighted descent. So you can see this fish right here. It's got this kind of lip grip thing. It's called a sequelizer that's attached to its mouth, and that is attached to a weight. Okay, you can't see the weight in this image, but basically what this is it's attached to a fishing line up at the boat, and then it's attached to the fish here at the mouth, and then there's a weight that dangles below, and that kind of weight just pulls that fish down in the water column. And by simply getting the fish back down to deeper water, they repressurize. So that gas that had expanded at the surface, when it goes down in the water column, the gas kind of gets, smaller, goes the other direction, and allows that fish to maintain its position in the water column once again. It just basically deflates the fish and lets it swim down on its own. The descending gear is an ideal strategy for folks who don't want to deal with a needle and they just want to get their fish back down. But again, these are things that you really only need to think about if you're fishing in deeper water. So if you're out there fishing for reef species like grouper and snapper, and you're out past like 30, 45 feet, that's when you need to start considering these mitigation strategies. There are a lot of venting tools on the market. A hypodermic needle works great as long as it's a large enough gauge, but there are some that you can buy at bait and tackle shops as well. You can also make your own with a stainless steel tube that you cut off to be sharp enough to insert into the fish. So there are lots of things out there. And then weighted descent, there are options available on the market like the sequelizer, and then some people make their own homemade versions. Like this right here is just a weighted milk crate. It just has some dive weights bolted on to a milk crate. You put your inflated fish into that and then have the milk crate on a rope, put that into the water by the, off the side of the boat and let it sink down. And then when the fish are able to swim on their own, they'll just swim right out of the bottom of that milk crate just fine. So these are just some different strategies you can utilize when you're letting your reef fish go. So Florida Sea Grant, as I mentioned before, is a resource for folks to check out at any time. This is our website. We have a whole fisheries program that's dedicated to providing information on catch and release. You can see there's a section here. So this is a good place for educators to go, or for people that might need some downloadable PDFs or access to videos that are educational or informative. You can find that on our Florida Sea Grant website and the fisheries program specifically. we've also got something called a Florida Friendly Fishing Guide training program, which is also on the Sea Grant website. This is a training program that has been designed for fishing guides, but if you're not a fishing guide, you can still take it at a very reduced rate and learn. It's a very extensive 8-module program that provides tons of background information. It's several hours long, and a lot of folks that have taken it have really said that it's increased their ability to feel like they're doing the right thing with the fish that they're handling. So this is just another option out there for folks that want to learn more about fishing friendly practices. So I love to talk about gag grouper because in Sarasota Bay and Tampa Bay, these are really important estuaries for this fish. If you look here on the left, this is a little baby gag grouper. We caught this in the grass flats in Tampa Bay just last weekend. They grow up inside the estuary. So Tampa Bay and Sarasota Bay, the grass areas are both really important for nursery habitat for gag grouper. And then this over here on the right is a big gag grouper that's grown up. So as they grow up, they move gradually offshore. You start seeing them out in the really deep water on the West Florida shelf as they get really, really big. So what we do today definitely matters for the health of tomorrow's fisheries. And then Florida Seafood at your fingertips is reinvigorated. We're live every Wednesday night. Check this out if you just like to eat seafood, or if you catch a fish and bring it home and you want to cook it. There's a lot of cooking demos that will be available online. More to come in the future, but tune in on Facebook on the Florida Sea Grant page every Wednesday evening and learn about cooking some seafood. So if you're here and you'd like to take a quick poll, we'd love it if you could just answer a couple questions. I'm going to launch it real quick and wait about 30 seconds. It'll only take you a sec. And in about 30 seconds, Armando and I can field any questions that the audience might have. Okay. And then here's our contact info one more time. Feel free to reach out anytime for any information that we might be able to provide here in Sarasota and Manatee counties.
Thank you,
That's great,
Angela.
Angela. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you as well. And Armando, take it away with some of the great things happening in Sarasota County.
Well, here we also have a great program as well. As Angela is saying, we are your
Armando,
resources
can you
for
see the chat? Are there any questions?
Yeah, there is. But just to finish yet, so this is my contact information as well. One of the questions is, if a fish that is not in season dies upon release, can I keep it?
No. Did you say if it's not in season and it dies on release? Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, if it's not legal to keep, even if it's dead, I know it seems like a huge waste, but if you get caught with it in your cooler and it's not in season, it'll be a ticket. So yeah, even if it dies, you have to put it back in the water. Okay.
Another question is, I heard that the barbs, if you remove the barb, might help with the catch and release. Is that true?
Yeah. A lot of anglers don't want to do that because, it obviously increases the chance that the fish is going to get off the hook. But if you flatten the barb, and that, again, just use your pliers to flatten the barb against the side of the hook, that can make getting the hook out way easier for sure. But it also obviously is going to increase the chance that fish might pop the hook.
Right. And the other question is, if a fish still swallow the hook, where's the best spot to cut the hook, to cut the line?
So if it swallows the hook, try to get down as close as you can to the knot without like ripping the stomach out. If you have one of those dehooking devices, it's kind of up to the angler and how comfortable they are with those longer dehooking tools, but just try to get as much of that line, get down into the throat as far as you can and then cut it. If you feel like you're going to damage the internal organs of the fish. Because I will tell you that I've caught tons of fish that have been living just fine, and when we've eaten them at home and prepared them, you cut them open and take everything out, they'll have multiple hooks sometimes in their stomach, so it can it shows that they can survive with a hook in their stomach for a while. Obviously, if they have too much fishing gear in their stomachs, they're not going to be able to eat as well as they normally would. But yeah, if you're worried it's going to injure the fish more to get that hook out, leave it in there. And if it's a non-stainless or corrosive metal, it'll eventually dissolve.
Great. And just for my own sake, because I do want to tell people, can you tell us how's the best way to hold a fish if you're going to take a picture with a fish?
So the best way to hold a fish? Well, okay, so it depends on the, keep it in the water as much as you can, for sure. So for like your big tarpon and some of the like Goliath grouper, for example, some of those are really hard to get in the boat anyway. So if you can hold them by the side, you know, and lean over the gunnels and take your photos that way, that would be ideal. If you're bringing them in the boat, that's totally fine, but try to make sure that the body weight is supported, especially for those larger fish that you're pulling into the boat. Think about that, all that gravity, suddenly they're not supported by the water anymore. So just having your hands wet and then providing some support. If you have that lip grip and have their mouth, you know, gripped with your boga grip or whatever you're using to hold onto the mouth, that can help you control the fish, and it's less likely that the fish is going to slip out of your hands and fall on the deck, because I've seen that happen, you know, tons of times. The fish they're slippery. So if you have some way to maintain control of the fish's head, those lip grips are fantastic. And then your other hand, you want to make sure you get a good fish photo, so you don't want your hand in the way, right? So hold them underneath the abdomen and give them a little bit of body support. Take your photo. Have the sun, you know, in front of you, so the sun's shining on your fish. It makes it look better, and then get them back in the water as quickly as you can.
And hold them out really far so they look bigger.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I think sort of all the questions we have. I just want to add, you know, that I'm in Sarasota as well. So if you have any questions, and one thing that I want to recommend people is that when you go fishing, check before you go what is in season, what is not. I like to do that for myself and with my family, so we have a reminder of what we can keep or not, and the sizes, because they can change quite a bit as well.
For sure, yeah, and have your fish apps, your fish rules app on your phone, and then when you're out on the water, you can just click it open and look for that species, and it'll tell you what the size limit is. It'll tell you if it's open or closed. You can set your phone so that the app knows where you are. So if you're in state waters or federal waters, there's some really good applications out there for your phone, so you can stay up to date.
Have fun.
Have fun.
All right. Well, thank you guys. That was wonderful. Lots of great information. I do want to mention that we have upcoming webinars. We're celebrating the 50 years of Earth Day this year with monthly webinars on sustainability and sustainability topics. Our next one will be June 18th, and we'll be discussing the home environment safety. So lots of interesting information about how to keep your home safe with different cleaning products that you're using, and just all kinds of things. So Nellie Nelson, our extension agent in Manatee County, is going to help host that. We'll have Sarasota represented as well. This is a joint effort between the two offices. So a very nice partnership between Sarasota and Manatee. So again, thank everyone for attending today. We really appreciate it, and we hope to see you back for more of these. These are recorded, and we will be posting them on our YouTube channels. So if you would like to share this information with a friend, please look forward to seeing it either on our YouTube channel or posted in one of our Facebook pages. Both Sarasota and Manatee County are posting these. So we hope that you'll find this and other topics very informational, and feel free to share them with your friends. All right, thanks again, and have a wonderful day.